Hello again, I'm John Terzak, and welcome to another video cooking lesson at The Seasoned Cook. Today I'm going to make one of the most favorite things I've ever made and eaten throughout my entire life, and that is brioche dough, and we're going to make brioche bread also, okay? So, I'm going to start out by activating a couple quarter-ounce packs in approximate 100-degree milk, which I have a 5 tablespoons of milk here is what I have. Let's put the yeast on there. Let's put the 5 tablespoons of granulated sugar in there. And the other package of yeast. Give that a little twirl with the finger. And now we're going to give that about 8 or 9 minutes to activate itself, okay? And when we come back, should have a head foamy covering on it, and then we're going to start making this bread dough. Okay, as you can see, the yeast has activated. You see that little cake over the top of that milk? That's what you want to see before you use your yeast. There's such a thing as having a bad package of yeast that doesn't do this because it went bad in the package for whatever reason. The yeast doesn't last forever, even the dry ones that I use today. So I have 2 cups of bread flour and 2 cups of all-purpose flour and 2 teaspoons of salt in this container right here. And I have the paddle attachment on the machine. We're going to start out with the paddle attachment, and we're going to switch over to the dough hook. And I want to warn you in advance, this particular, doesn't mean we're not going to time-elapse this video, but making this in the machine from this point forward can take a solid half an hour with the machine because of the amount of time it takes to add all the ingredients to it. So let's get both of the flours and the salt in the machine. Let's get the machine going. Let's add all of the yeast to this, and the milk and the sugar. Okay, now, I want you to see what I have here real quick before I start adding eggs to this. I have a dry mixture that's got some beads in it from where the milk hit this, okay? Now, I'm not thinking straight now. Now it's time to put the dough hook on it, now that we got that mixed. And now we're going to add 1 beaten egg at a time, being sure not to add a second egg before the previous egg has been completely absorbed. Can you just break the whole eggs into it? Yes, but I don't like to do that. Now the first 2 eggs, even the first 3 eggs, get absorbed rather quickly. So just get this stuff off the sides. Just get as much of it together in there as possible. Still had a lot of dry flour on the Okay, let's put the second egg in. That's pretty much absorbed. Let's put the third egg in. The recipe that I'm showing you today calls for 5.5 eggs and 8 ounces of whole, soft, unsalted butter. Okay, here goes the fourth egg. Here goes the fifth egg. Now, the sixth egg, which I'm only going to use a half of, you want to be careful putting it in so you don't spill the whole egg in there. It's gathering together inside the bowl now. Maybe I can show it to you. Let me see. Can you see that? That was tricky. I never did that before. Just wanted you to see how together it was. Okay, now I'm going to put half of this egg in, and I have half of it in. Now it's starting to really come together. That 1/2 egg, the last one. It's almost a ball now. As a matter of fact, it is pretty much a ball now. You see? Now, I'm going to turn the speed down a little bit. And we're going to begin slowly adding the butter the same way we added the eggs. Well, this might take a little longer. So I've got this ointment consistency butter here, which is nice and soft. You never want to put melted butter in here. All right, so let's throw a tablespoon at a time into the machine. I'm going to fast forward this for a minute now while I use up the first stick, and then we'll be right back and go on to the next stick. So you don't have to sit here and watch the machine all day. Well, that's all right. I've been adding the butter, and I've got about 7 of the 8 ounces in here. I got a solid ball here now. I'm going to put the last shot of butter in. This has been going on for about 10 minutes. You want to make sure it's absorbed before you add the next tablespoon of it, or whatever amount you're putting in. Small amount. It's just about ready to be put into a bowl that's buttered, covered with plastic wrap, and put into the refrigerator overnight so that it can retard in the refrigerator. Retarding, okay, this is one that looks like, this looks good. This looks really good. So real quick, retarding only means letting dough rise in a refrigerator. It doesn't mean anything else. So whenever you hear somebody say, well, we're retarding the dough, that means it's being done in a refrigerator. All right, so let's get our dough out. We got all our butter in. There's no more ingredients to be added to this dough now. We got our 8 ounces of butter in. And as you see, we got a wad of dough there. Now I'm going to take this dough and I'm going to put it into this bowl. See how that all came out of there in one piece? I'm going to cover this with plastic wrap, and it's going to sit in the fridge overnight. But I got a surprise for you. I did this yesterday. So I've got the one I made yesterday that's been sitting in the fridge all night, ready to go. So let's get it out. This is the exact same recipe that I just made. So what we're going to end up doing here is we're going to make a loaf of bread inside this tureen. Now, whatever container you want to use, you can use. But I'm choosing to use this one because I like to, you know. So let's get this dough. Let's get a little bit of flour on the table here. Let's get this dough out of there. There you go. Still got some air left in it. I think this dough rose and then even went down a little bit overnight. And this is the time to put a couple more little folds and kneads on this dough without tearing the dough. I'm lubricating my hand in this table with a little flour because this is a buttery, eggy bread dough. Okay, I think I got what I want here. Now, let's say you want to use this dough tomorrow. Then put it in a Ziploc bag. I recommend that over plastic wrapping it because it can expand out of the plastic wrap. It ain't expanding out of the Ziploc bag. So let's start by cutting ourselves a piece of this and rolling it into the shape of this tureen. Boom. That tureen is almost half full. Now I'm going to cover this with plastic wrap. I'm going to put it in this oven, which I have at the very lowest possible setting. And I even have the door open so it doesn't accidentally get too warm. I'm going to put that in there until this dough rises to the top of this container. Then we're going to egg wash it and bake it at 400 degrees for about 20 minutes. And that's going to be the end of making brioche bread. But you've got two recipes in this particular lesson. You have how to make the dough, and there's all kinds of other things that you can do with this dough besides make bread like this. And you have the steps for making the bread. And you know what? I want a little bit more dough on this piece. So I'm going to take a piece off and I'm going to incorporate it into this. I didn't like that size. I like that size now. All right, we'll be back when this is risen to the top of this container, and then it's going to go in the oven. All right, as you can see, it has more than doubled inside this tureen, the brioche has. Let's get the plastic off. Nice looking bread. Now I have some egg wash here, and I have the oven preheated to 410 degrees. So you want to bake it 400, 425 right in there, depending on your oven. So I have a single egg yolk here with a single tablespoon of cream and a single tablespoon of cold water. And that's the egg wash that I'm using. We're going to rub it all over the top of this. And hopefully I didn't put too much dough in here, but it should bake just fine. Okay, now I'm going to pop this in the oven. And in a very short period of time, this is going to be done. All right, we'll be back in a short period of time. Okay, that beautiful French buttery brioche. It's been in the oven about 20 minutes, 25 minutes, and it's ready to come out. Now, how do I know it's ready? Because I know it's ready because I put this small knife inside of here, and it came up mostly clean. You hear that sound? That's the hollow sound. And that's another way that you know that this brioche is done. So, let's see how much trouble it's going to be to get this out of this loaf pan. Let's loosen any of these parts. It's hot. What you're going to learn today is this bread is dense enough without actually being like a pound cake, which it's not like at all, where it can be sliced perfectly when it's hot, which we're going to do for you right here in a minute or two. So, first, let's see how easily she slips out. Well, look at that. That looks pretty handy. Boom! Got ourselves a loaf of bread there. Look at that. Oh, I love this bread. Let's get a good look at that. Okay. Now, I was just saying how you can cut this bread when it's hot with a bread knife. And that's what we're going to do right now. I normally let it cool a little bit, but I'm doing this just, well, to show this bread off a little bit. Boom. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. It needs to relax a little bit before you cut it, but it can be cut just like that. And then, of course, under those circumstances, you can take a piece of it directly out of the oven, put some butter on it, and if it's early in the morning, you know, there's nothing wrong with having some raspberry jam involved in this stuff. This is good. So, the brioche. This is how you make the dough and the bread. You get a chance to have this, go ahead and make it. And don't worry about it, because if you make it once, you'll make it 3 or 4 times. Enjoy this. This is my favorite bread of all time.